Our headlines guy, Andrew Posadas, is here. Andrew, I'm sure you have some strong thoughts about
I
the
would just
NBA.
say this, fellas. I think the players are in such a compromising situation if you think about it, because the NFL is basically giving them the proverbial middle finger. If they have positive cases and they're missing half of their starters, they have to go out there and play at a competitive disadvantage. And for the players, you kind of have no choice, because if you cancel any games or if any team forfeits, neither team gets a check for that week. So, E-Man, I really think at the end of the day, Roger Goodell could talk like this because he has the players right where he wants them. They're in a compromising situation, and they really have no choice but to either play at a competitive disadvantage at any given week, or play without, or not play and not get paid, which for these players during this pandemic can't happen. You can't miss out on game checks.
And it shouldn't surprise any of us because I've said this for the longest time. NFL players have never ever had a fair they've never had a fair deal with the NFL. Look at baseball when the pandemic hit. I mean, the players they were at the negotiating table for months before they played to get their terms. NFL players, you don't even hear about a players association. It is like the weakest PA that I've ever heard of.
You never hear about it. And Chris,
what is that?
These contracts are disgusting too. You look at what the NFL does on a yearly basis. Their best players, what is a third of their money guaranteed?
It's
Would
crazy.
that ever happen in another league?
It's criminal. And you're talking about the players who put the most on the line, not just on a game-to-game basis, but on a lifelong basis. We know about the long-term effects of this game on the brain. And then the numbers are startling. The average NFL player living to something like 55 years of age. Startling. And these players, they don't get full checks. If they get hurt, they can get cut. They don't get guaranteed cash. And yes, I know what perhaps a casual sports fan will observe when they hear this. Oh, you're gonna cry pity for rich guys. Well, I'm just gonna be honest with you. Yes, the top of the league is rich, and you'll see the big figures. Dak Prescott is going to get a big contract, even though he's hurt. But you're going to see, a lot of these guys have big contracts, especially the quarterbacks. But the rank and file National Football League player is not making money like that, and they are making good money, but they can only count on that money for probably 3 years because the average NFL player leaves the league after 3 years. So a bit of a rant there, but bottom line is they don't get a fair shake to begin with. And it shouldn't surprise any of us that this has been the sport that has been league first. And I have to question some of the outside observers like us, the media, which has a responsibility to sort of look into this. I wonder to what extent people are going to look the other way or have been looking the other way, because this industry stretches into massive television deals. You're talking about people whose livelihoods are on the line. Their livelihood is the National Football League. This league literally creates jobs and puts, meals on people's tables, producers, people that we have met along our time in the industry. And so I understand why it is such a hard thing to touch.
Yeah, all points aside, they have the players exactly where they want them. And the problem arises, they are now completely off base in terms of what the fan wants. And I'm not sure if they have that in mind, if they will bear that in mind when making their future decisions. I don't trust them to. But as long as they are taking advantage of the players, getting what they want, getting the games in, I'm not sure if they worry about the integrity on the field. I'm not sure if they worry about, do they worry about an Aaron Rodgers missing a playoff game?
They certainly do. They certainly do.
Will that be, they may care about it, but will that be the decision that comes about?
Well, so I'm kind of curious what you're proposing. Do you think that in that event, well, first of all, would it be right for the league to discriminate against which players matter more? If an Aaron Rodgers was hurt, should the league institute a cancellation? I mean, they have to have uniform policies. It wouldn't be fair. They didn't treat the Drew Lock having to sit out with any care. So would it be fair if they said the Green Bay Packers aren't going to play because Aaron Rodgers? I don't think it is. I don't think that they can institute a policy like that. Is that what you are proposing? Should a game be postponed in that situation?
I don't think a league would ever have a policy like that, but we see it time and time again where leagues value certain teams and players over others. So I think it would be almost an indirect action. We were talking before about how some teams, some matchups are valued over others, and you were saying before, Chris, you're not as concerned that these are mid-year matchups. They're week 13 rather than the postseason. I'm not sure what the answer is. I just worry that the overall decision and what the NFL does next, they may not think it impacts exactly how we'll be consuming these playoff games and the games that matter most. But they haven't shown any interest in making it right and making sure that the fans have confidence that their interest is in the right fashion.
No, I think the answer, I think we agree, is that it would be a bubble when the postseason comes along. And it certainly is a logistical headache, but they are going to have to move toward that. They're going to have to admit that it's the reality, because it is their worst nightmare. A backup quarterback starting a big playoff game is not something that they want to see. If it happens, it happens. And this is a year where we knew it would happen. It's still going to get a lot of eyes. It's still an NFL playoff game. I think the goal for them is just to they've done it's been, I don't want to call it dishonest, but somehow we're at a point where it doesn't seem like most people are in tune with how bad the surge of COVID cases in the NFL has been, nearly 90 this week. And it's just sort of missed in what's going on. I think it needs to be said. And the league, especially when we unfortunately what we face ahead appears to be very bad, perhaps as bad or worse than what we experienced in the spring. If that happens, and when that happens, the whole posture is going to have to be different. The NFL might have to take a full week or a 2-week pause to get their stuff together. They have to be ready to do that, and they have to prioritize public health, because there's a lot of people associated with this sport who come into contact with these players, talking about staff, and then they go home to families, and it can't be taken lightly just because we're talking about young men in the best shape and best health of their life. There are other people who are connected to this sport who are critically important, and it needs to be taken into account.
So will Roger Goodell wake up and see the light? I think that's the main question we'll be monitoring moving forward.